Okay, so changes afoot in education. In this case, we're talking about NAPLAN. So there's a whole range of complaints and challenges against the application of the NAPLAN test, which I won't really go into here. But suffice to say, the general public opinion, or at least among the education community, seems to be pushing very strongly against NAPLAN and perhaps it being abolished or removed or replaced. So a big push against it has come from Les Perelman, and he called the test absurd and the data, wildly unreliable and those sort of things. Another thing he did which really made quite an impact on the news was he produced a list of 15 sort of pointers or guidelines on how students could pass the NAPLAN, and some of them were especially delicious. So here are some of the best bits. Memorize difficult spelling words and use them. If you don't know how to use a word, if you don't know how to spell a word, don't use it. Repeat words and phrases throughout your paper over and over again. Steal narrative structures from films or movies, as they won't mark you down against those things. And then the last point is kind of the most telling of all, and it simply says, never write like this except for essay tests like the NAPLAN. So obviously as a teacher, this runs directly counter to what you're getting students to try to do. Not be repetitive, create original ideas, explore their own personality, their own creativity, challenge themselves with difficult vocab even if they're not familiar with the correct spelling of it yet, sound it out, all those sorts of things. So obviously the NAPLAN's challenged in that respect. Another complaint raised against it is the strict nature of the rubric or the marking approach to it. He provides a list of spelling words which have been divided into simple, common, difficult and challenging, and that's where the point that was made earlier is referred to. So he was saying you would just memorize the right hand column of that list and you would repeat that in a essay or a piece of writing for the NAPLAN, and that would increase your marks and show you as above standard. So apart from all the sort of meta things like, how reliable is a school's data on a particular day for a particular year level, what sort of changes are you expected between year levels and those sort of kind of obvious data things. It's also worth noting that the NAPLAN was pushing towards what's termed robot marking, which is basically just replacing the human examiners with automated programs. What's interesting about that is if you do a quick Google search of the pay rate for NAPLAN examiners, you'd be surprised to see that it's $53 an hour. Without running through too much detail, I employ a personal trainer for $50 per hour. My gardener works for less than an hour and gets paid $60. So I would suggest that maybe these pay scales are quite low, and why you would then seek out, I guess it would be easier than sourcing humans, but why you would replace humans with robots when you're paying them such a small amount seems disingenuous or surprising to say the least. But also it seems to make sense that if you have such a strange, and as Les Perelman notes, strange kind of marking approach, the reason that you would have such a strange marking approach would be so that a computer could actually achieve and mark the assessments that you've got. But they obviously put a lot of money and planning into actually creating the marking system, the kind of rubric or the scoring type matrix, so that a robot could actually, well, calling it a robot seems a bit silly, but so that a computer program could perform that. So you might think, robot marking seems like a bit of a joke, but there's actually something called an AES, which is an automated essay scoring system. And basically, if you think about the key things that you're looking for as a teacher, original ideas, expression, description, obviously these scoring systems can't do that, so that's how you get such a bizarre sort of assessment rubric. So the things they can count are basic things that even a non-teacher could recognize a good or a bad piece of work, sort of length, number of sentences per paragraph, number of paragraphs in the piece. You could almost think handwriting is usually a very vague, rough proxy, so you could imagine the systems could use that, but that isn't actually listed in the report. The number of commas in 2012 was found to give a similar mark to what a human marker would score essays, so that sort of raises the question of the role of marking and the purpose of marking. So anyway, that's just my sort of summary of what's going on in regards to NAPLAN. Let me know if you've got any ideas or different opinions on how this should be approached or how it could be fixed or recreated in Australia or in any nation really.